You ever seen somebody who had a real good life, but then something happened bad that made them just go off the deep end? I have. Johnny, the little Johnny, Johnny, the little Johnny, Johnny, the little Johnny, Johnny, the little Johnny. Little Johnny was a youngin' who grew up with big dreams. He would have major goals and would plan for big things. Ever since he was a youngin', he had interest in astronomy, and if he got to college, he would major in astrology. Johnny had smarts, so he acted real scholarly. A lucky little 8-year-old whose mother won the lottery. It runs in the family. His brother was a prodigy. At age 22, his brother got his law degree. Life is great, and Johnny's living happily. His mother's so proud that he's everything she asked to be. But one day, something happened suddenly. Johnny got a call at 3 a.m. that got him wondering. His brother's roommate called, screaming and was stuttering. If you heard his voice, you could tell that something troubled him. He said, "Your brother ain't come home and it bothers me. I called his phone like 80 times, but he isn't answering." Johnny said, "Well, I'ma start calling him. You don't have to worry, cause he always answers calls for me." Johnny flipped his phone to dial his older brother, but when he got his voicemail, he knew that there was trouble. Something happened, unknown to Johnny's family. His brother was a victim of a deadly armed robbery. Johnny laid back and thought about his brother, only to be awakened by the voice of his mother. Johnny's mother was crying on the phone, hysterically screaming, but for why he didn't know. As he approached, her eyes got wetter. He placed his hand on her back to make her feel better. Johnny asked if there was something that he could get her, but she kept quiet while her eyes got wetter. "Mom, is there anything that I can get you?" She sniffed her nose in while her eyes got wetter. "Mom, what can I do to make you better?" She slowly rubbed her head while her eyes got wetter. Her eyes got redder. Johnny rose his eyes to the TV and saw what would change his life forever. There's a breaking news on the TV screen.
This is Channel 10 News, and we're at the crime scene.
The TV anchor talks while she listens to authorities, and then gets word that something happened horribly.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're dealing with a tragedy. A young man was killed in a deadly armed robbery.
At this point, Johnny's focus was thrown. As soon as Johnny turned his head, his brother's picture was shown. Johnny looked back and saw what he wasn't ready for. Footage of his older brother's body on a stretcher board. The mom's eyes grew wide and started crying more. Turns out something different made her cry before. If you recall, Johnny's mother won the lottery around the same time I said the brother was a prodigy. Well, Johnny's mom got a call at 8:50. It turns out the IRS repossessed her winnings. That's why she cried previously on the phone. Her eldest son's death at this time was still unknown. Johnny and his mom stayed glued to the screen, hoping that this was a joke, hoping that this was a dream. Johnny walked away holding his head, then he said, "I can't believe my brother is dead." Johnny started stumbling and staggered to his bed as he thought about his brother who was no longer there. He hated life and he realized he had it. Johnny rose up and made his way to the attic. Johnny had a granddad who fought in Vietnam, so indeed in the attic there were guns of many kinds. Johnny cried harder as he struggled upstairs as his brother's dead image swarmed circles in his head. Johnny hated death and he struggled with the pain, and as far as living life he planned to throw it away. Johnny turned the knob and he opened the door, misplaced his first step and fell on the floor. He crawled to the corner of the attic in tears. This the first time little Johnny cried in years. It's a shame, cause he was living wonderfully, a lucky little 8-year-old whose mother won the lottery. As far as life, Johnny lived it problem-free until his brother got killed in a robbery. Honestly, there's a moral to the story. Life might shine, but it rarely ends in glory. Don't fall down when it's something that you can't handle, and then break down. Take Johnny for example. Johnny's granddad used to play the drums, and inside the drums there were little great guns. Johnny ripped the drum and then told what happens next, then wait for Little Johnny Part 2. Little Johnny.